Under the pale skies of the mining world Zethra 9, Captain Eli Carter stood beside a hospital bed that looked far too small for the man lying on it. Cortel, his alien brother-in-arms, was a soldier of strength and laughter, a warrior with fox-shaped ears and silver scars that once told stories of courage. Now those same scars looked lifeless against the blue light of the medical chamber. The machines hummed softly, measuring the slow fall of his life. Eli watched the numbers drop, helpless. Cor turned his head slightly and managed a faint smile. "Don't look like that, human," he whispered. His voice was rough, but still carried that familiar warmth. "Promise me one thing. Protect her." His eyes drifted toward the corner where a quiet woman stood, half hidden in the shadows. "Lysera," he breathed. "She's more than she seems. Don't let them take her." Eli wanted to ask what that meant, but Cor's chest fell and never rose again. The silence that followed felt heavier than the planet's gravity. Eli placed a hand over his friend's still heart and swore silently that he would keep his word, though he did not yet understand what it would cost him. After the funeral pyre burned down, the wind swept through the mining colony, carrying black ash into the desert sky. The alien elders gathered in the Hall of Union, their golden robes glimmering under the blue suns. Eli, wearing his human uniform, stood awkwardly among them. His translator earpiece buzzed as the head elder spoke. "Cor Tal left behind his bonded mate," the elder said slowly. "Tradition demands her protection. As he has no surviving clan, the honor passes to you, human brother." Eli frowned. "Protection?" "Yes, but I can't stay here forever." The elder's eyes narrowed. "You misunderstand. The protection must be sealed through union, marriage." The words felt like a blow. Eli almost laughed in disbelief, but no one else did. Lysera stood silently beside the elder, her eyes downcast, her long pale hair braided with silver threads. She looked fragile but composed, like a statue that had learned to breathe. "I can't," Eli muttered. "I'm human. Our customs, our law is older than your stars," the elder interrupted. "Refusal would shame the name of Cor Tal. It would leave the widow without clan or shelter. Do you wish that for the woman he loved?" Eli glanced at Lysera. Her face revealed nothing, but her hands were trembling. She said quietly, "You don't have to. I can survive," but the way she said it carried no hope. Eli could see the alien guards waiting at the edge of the hall, ready to enforce the council's order. He remembered Cor's final words, "Protect her." Maybe this was what he had meant. By dusk, the ceremony was over. The hall was lit with floating lights and the air smelled of burning resin. Eli and Lysera stood before the elders, their hands joined in the old alien custom. The vow was spoken in both languages. When it ended, the crowd murmured softly, a strange mix of approval and pity. Eli looked at the thin silver ring now marking his wrist, proof of the bond. It glowed faintly, connecting him to her through a strand of living energy. Later, inside the small dwelling that once belonged to Cor, silence filled the rooms. Lysera sat by the window, staring at the glowing mines in the distance. Eli placed his jacket on a chair and rubbed his forehead. "You don't have to pretend," he said. "This isn't what either of us wanted." She nodded slowly. "No, but perhaps it is what he wanted." Her voice was calm, almost too calm. The hum of the mining drones outside filled the pause between them. Eli wanted to speak again, but stopped when he noticed her expression. Something between grief and guilt. When night fell, Lysera retired to her room. Eli stayed awake, staring at the fire in the hearth. His mind ran in circles. He couldn't understand why Cor had asked him to protect her, or why the elders seemed so eager for this union. It felt less like an act of honor and more like a carefully planned command. Unable to rest, he walked through the quiet house. The walls were carved from dark stone, lined with alien patterns that shimmered faintly in the firelight. When he entered the old study, he noticed a loose panel near the desk. Curiosity got the better of him. He pried it open and found a small metal cube hidden inside, a data storage device humming faintly with a soft blue light. Eli picked it up and turned it over. It was marked with Cor's family crest. He pressed the surface and for a brief second, a line of alien code flashed across the holographic screen before disappearing. Whatever it contained, it was encrypted and heavily. "More than she seems," Cor's dying words echoed again in his mind. Eli glanced toward Lysera's closed door. He wondered if she knew about this cube, if she was guarding a secret tied to her husband's death. A part of him wanted to confront her right away, but another part warned him to wait. He hid the cube inside his own jacket and sat down near the window. Outside, the twin moons rose, casting silver light across the barren plains. Somewhere in the distance, the mines glowed like sleeping beasts. Eli realized that his life had changed completely. One day he had been a soldier returning from war, and now he was trapped in an alien marriage, holding a mystery his brother had died to protect. As the night deepened, Lysira's shadow appeared at the edge of the hallway. She didn't say a word, just watched him quietly, her violet eyes reflecting the moonlight. For a brief moment, Eli thought she looked almost frightened of him. Then she turned and disappeared back into her room. Eli leaned back, staring at the cube in his hand. He whispered softly, "All right, brother. I'll protect her. But I want to know why." The cube blinked once as if it heard him, then fell silent. Outside, the first storm of the season began to rise over Zethra 9, sweeping dust and lightning across the dark horizon. It was the beginning of something far larger than Eli could imagine. The morning light on Zethra 9 was pale and weak, filtered through thick dust that hung in the sky. Eli Carter woke early, the hum of the colony already starting outside. The air smelled faintly of iron and ozone. He had barely slept. All night his mind kept returning to the small glowing cube hidden inside his jacket. It felt like the thing was watching him even when it wasn't moving. Lysira was already awake, standing near the window when he came out of his room. She was dressed in simple robes, her long silver hair braided neatly. She didn't turn to greet him, just whispered, "The mines start at dawn. They say the storms will last all week." Eli nodded. "You've lived here your whole life?" "Born here," she said. "My father worked these mines before Core." Her eyes softened when she said her husband's name, but the sadness behind them looked deeper than grief. It looked like fear trying to stay hidden. Eli made himself some tea from the small rations he had brought from the human base. She watched the steam rise, curious. "Humans drink this every morning?" "Helps me think," he said. She gave a faint smile. "Then drink much. You'll need it." The words sounded strange, almost like a warning. When she left to visit the market, Eli finally pulled out the cube again. He placed it on the table, connecting it to his translator. Lines of alien text filled the air in pale blue light. The encryption was complex, far beyond anything normal for personal data. But Eli had worked with intelligence files before. He began decoding piece by piece until the first line appeared. Inheritance account. Access restricted to blood bond and mate bond authorization. He frowned. So this was about Core's property? Maybe Lysira was entitled to it. But another section caught his attention. A list of corporate transactions linked to energy shipments and coded messages marked Council Priority. The deeper he searched, the more uneasy he felt. When Lysira returned, she found him staring at the glowing text. Her expression changed instantly from calm to panic. "What are you doing?" she whispered sharply. Eli looked up. "I found this in the study. It belonged to Core. I thought maybe you shouldn't have opened it," she said, rushing forward. Her hands trembled as she grabbed the cube. "Do you have any idea who can track that signal?" Eli stood up surprised. "Who's tracking it? What's in this thing?" She hesitated, glancing toward the window as if expecting someone to appear. "It's not money." "Not really. The council believes it is an inheritance, but it's something far worse. Core found proof, records that could destroy entire trade houses. If they learn the cube still exists, they will come for us both." Eli took a slow breath. "You mean he was killed for this?" Her voice cracked. "He tried to protect the miners. The council wanted full control of the energy cores. He found out they were lying to the people. When he refused to sell his data, they called it an accident." Eli stared at her. The grief he had seen before now made sense. But another feeling began to rise. Anger, not at her, but at the world that had forced them into this mess. "Why didn't you tell me?" he asked quietly. "Because you're human," she said bitterly. "If they knew he trusted you with the evidence, they'd erase you too." He sat down again, thinking. The cube hummed softly on the table between them as if alive. Outside, thunder rolled across the valley. Lysira placed her hands over the cube. "Promise me," she said. "Do not open it again. At least not here. There are scanners in the colony that can detect its code." Eli hesitated, then nodded. "Fine, but I need to understand what Core wanted me to do. He said I should protect you. If that means keeping this safe, I'll do it." Lysira looked at him with quiet surprise. "You really mean that?" "I gave him my word," he said simply. She looked down, her voice barely above a whisper. Then you are already part of it, whether you wish it or not. Later that day, Eli followed her to the market. The narrow streets were filled with miners, traders, and merchants. Strange alien machines buzzed overhead carrying supplies. Lysera moved gracefully through the crowd, her head covered by a light scarf. Eli noticed a few people staring at her, some with pity, others with suspicion. A tall alien guard in black armor approached them. "Widow of Cortal," he said coldly, "the council requests your presence tomorrow. The inheritance validation will begin." Lysera's face went pale. "All ready?" The guard nodded. "Bring your human husband. The council must witness the union before finalizing the claim." When he left, Eli asked, "What validation?" She whispered, "They want to confirm the bond is real. If we fail, they can seize everything, and the cube will no longer be protected by the law." Eli frowned. "So this is about control." She nodded weakly. "Yes, they'll pretend it's about honor, but they only want the codes." That night, as lightning flashed across the sky, Eli couldn't sleep again. He sat near the fire thinking about what Kor had done, what Lysera had hidden, and what the council was planning. He realized that his marriage was more than a ritual. It was a trap and a shield at the same time. He heard a faint sound and looked up. Lysera stood near the doorway, holding a thin blanket around her shoulders. "You're awake too," she said softly. "Can't stop thinking," he admitted. "Feels like the whole colony's a powder keg." She came closer to the firelight, her expression tired but calm. "You should know the truth soon. Tomorrow everything begins." He nodded, unsure what to expect. As she turned to leave, she paused. "Eli," she said quietly, "thank you for not giving up on me today." He watched her walk back to her room, the light from the flames glimmering on her silver hair. For the first time since Kor's death, Eli felt a strange sense of purpose. He didn't know what the council planned or what the hidden cube truly contained, but one thing was certain. He was no longer just a guest on this world. He was part of its danger now. Outside, the storm thundered like a warning from the skies. The next morning came with sharp winds and heavy clouds rolling across the red horizon. The mining colony buzzed with tension as word spread that the council would hold a hearing in the central dome. Eli Carter dressed in his cleanest uniform, though it was still dusty from the night's storm. Lysera wore the traditional widow's robes, their silver fabric shimmering faintly in the weak sunlight. She moved quietly beside him as they walked through the narrow streets toward the council hall. Eli noticed how the people looked at them. Some bowed politely, others whispered behind their backs. He could hear fragments of their words through the translator chip in his ear. The human husband, the widow of Cortal, strange union. It made him uneasy, but Lysera kept walking with her head high, her face calm like carved stone. When they entered the dome, the hall was filled with glowing lights, large alien banners hanging from the walls, and 12 elders seated in a semicircle. Their eyes glimmered like cold glass. At the center stood a high table where a symbol of Kor's family crest was displayed. The head elder, a tall alien with skin like polished metal, spoke first. "Lysera Tell, widow of Cortal, Captain Eli Carter, human soldier, you have been summoned to confirm your union and discuss inheritance rights. Are you both prepared?" Eli gave a small nod. Lysera's voice was steady. "We are." The elder's gaze shifted to Eli. "Do you understand the sacred bond you have entered? The widow of a warrior cannot live unbound. If you are husband in name only, the law rejects the inheritance," Eli answered carefully. "I accepted this union to honor my brother's memory and protect his wife as he wished. I did not come here for profit or power." A low murmur spread through the hall. Another elder leaned forward. "And yet the fortune tied to your name now equals the wealth of an entire mine. You will forgive us for questioning your intentions." Lysera's eyes flickered toward Eli, silently warning him to stay calm. She stepped forward. "Kor's wish was that his legacy be used for the people. He never wanted it for himself. Neither do we." The hall grew quiet again. But then a younger counselor stood. "We have reason to believe the human has accessed forbidden data belonging to Cortal." Eli's heart skipped. He glanced at Lysera, who stiffened beside him. "What are you talking about?" Eli said. "I found a cube in his study, yes, but I didn't understand it." The elder's voice deepened. "That cube contains encrypted records tied to illegal mining operations. If you tampered with them, you could face exile or worse. Lysera quickly spoke before Eli could react. He didn't open it. I did, I was afraid. I wanted to see what my husband left behind. Her lie was smooth and fearless. Eli watched her, surprised. The elder regarded her coldly. Then you admit you have the cube? She hesitated just long enough to make it believable. No, it was destroyed during the storm. After a long silence, the elders leaned back, clearly unconvinced but unwilling to press further without evidence. The head elder finally said, very well. The marriage shall be tested by cohabitation under the bond law. For one full planetary cycle, you will live together as husband and wife. After that time, if the union proves stable, the inheritance shall pass to you both. Eli frowned. A whole cycle? That's nearly a year. Such is our custom, the elder replied. You are free to leave the planet if you wish, but she will remain behind, stripped of her rights and protection. Lysera bowed her head. We accept. Eli wanted to protest, but her tone left no room for argument. The council dismissed them soon after. As they stepped out into the daylight, Eli turned to her. You could have told them the truth. You didn't have to lie for me. Lysera's eyes glimmered with something like sadness. If I hadn't, they would have taken the cube and killed us both. You're not just a soldier anymore, Eli. You're part of something bigger. Kor knew what he was doing when he chose you. They walked back through the colony in silence. The dust storm had eased, but the tension between them had not. When they reached the house, Eli set his gloves down on the table and said, So now we're prisoners in our own home. Lysera gave a faint, tired smile. Better alive prisoners than honored ghosts. As night fell, the glow from the mines painted their walls orange and red. Eli stood by the window watching the distant lights flicker. Lysera sat across the room, stitching a torn part of her robe. She looked peaceful, but her hands trembled slightly. You've done this before, Eli said suddenly. She looked up. Done what? Hidden fear. Spoken lies to survive. Her eyes met his for a long moment. Then she nodded slowly. Kor and I learned early that truth can be dangerous here. He believed the council was corrupt. He gathered proof but needed someone the law could not touch, a human. That's why he trusted you. Eli felt a mix of anger and sorrow rise inside him. So that's what this marriage is? A shield? Perhaps at first, she admitted. But maybe it can be more. Maybe it can save lives. He turned away, staring into the desert. The sky was filled with strange green lightning dancing across the horizon. For the first time, he began to understand the danger surrounding them. Kor's deathwa. He looked closer and saw a small hovering drone hidden among the rocks, its lens facing their home. He cursed softly and moved away from the light. Moments later, the door opened and Lysera stepped in, carrying a small basket of fruits. Her expression froze when she saw his face. What happened? She asked quickly. Eli pointed to the window. We're being watched. There's a drone outside. She placed the basket down, her face turning pale. Then they know you've been working on the cube. I didn't send any signal, he said. But someone doesn't trust us. Lysera moved to the corner, pressed a button on a hidden panel, and the room lights flickered. A faint humming began as a silver mist filled the corners of the ceiling. A shield field, she explained. Blocks low-level surveillance. Kor built it years ago. Eli raised an eyebrow. You've had this the whole time? She looked guilty. I didn't think I'd need it again. I hoped the council would leave me alone. Eli sighed. Hope's not enough anymore. That night, they sat across from each other near the fire. For the first time since the wedding, Lysera spoke freely. She told him how Kor had worked deep in the mines as both an engineer and an informant. He had uncovered proof that the council was secretly overmining the planet, draining energy cores faster than they could recover. The colony's collapse was only a matter of time. Kor had planned to expose the truth, but before he could, his ship exploded during a routine transport. Eli listened silently, anger burning behind his calm face. So they killed him. Lysera nodded. And they'll do the same to anyone who carries his secret. That's why I married you. The council cannot easily touch a human under alliance law. Kor knew that. Her words hit Eli hard. For a long moment he said nothing. Finally he asked, And now? What's your plan? She hesitated, then whispered, Finish what he started. Before he could answer, the power in the house flickered and died. The hum of the shield stopped. Darkness filled the room. Eli grabbed his blaster and moved to the window. Outside, shadows moved between the rocks. He could see red lights blinking, more drones closing in. "Stay down," he said quietly. Lysera crouched behind the table as a faint explosion shook the ground. The door burst open and a figure in dark armor stepped inside, holding a rifle. Eli fired first, hitting the intruder's shoulder. The alien stumbled back with a sharp cry. Before Eli could fire again, two more figures appeared. Then a deep voice shouted from behind the attackers. "Enough! Stand down!" The armed aliens froze. A tall man stepped into the doorway, a human wearing a half-torn Alliance uniform. His face was rough, scarred from battle. Eli recognized him instantly. "Commander Rafe?" Eli said in disbelief. "You're supposed to be dead." Rafe smiled faintly. "Not dead. Just working for new friends." His gaze shifted to Lysera. "You have something valuable, widow. Hand it over and no one gets hurt." Lysera stood slowly, her eyes cold. "You betrayed your own kind for them?" Rafe shrugged. "The Council pays better than the Alliance ever did." Eli felt fury rise inside him. "You're working with the same people who killed Kor." "Call it survival," Rafe said calmly. "You should try it sometime." Before he could move closer, Eli fired again, hitting the wall beside him. The shot startled the others long enough for Lysera to hit the emergency switch near the door. The floor panel shifted, and a cloud of metallic dust burst into the air, confusing the drone's sensors. Eli pulled Lysera toward the back tunnel Kor had built years ago. They ran through the narrow corridor as alarms sounded behind them. The tunnel led to an old outpost hidden under the cliffs, abandoned since the early wars. When they finally reached it, Eli collapsed against the wall, breathing hard. Lysera sealed the metal door and leaned beside him, trembling. For a while, neither spoke. The only sound was their breathing and the distant rumble of thunder outside. Finally, Eli said, "Your husband thought of everything, didn't he?" She gave a faint, tired smile. "He planned for this day. I just hoped it would never come." Eli looked at her, realizing that her strength wasn't just courage. It was survival built through loss and fear. "You could have left me behind," he said. She shook her head. "You gave me your word to protect me. I intend to keep you alive long enough to do that." Despite the danger, Eli almost laughed. "You're impossible." "Good," she said softly. "That means I'll survive." Outside, the wind howled through the canyon like the cry of something ancient. The two of them sat together in the dark, the cube glowing faintly between them. It was small and quiet, but the secret it held was powerful enough to destroy worlds, and they both knew the storm had only just begun. The old outpost was cold and silent, filled with the echo of forgotten wars. Dust floated in the air like smoke, settling on the broken consoles and rusted weapons left behind by soldiers long gone. Eli Carter sat beside the dim light of a portable lamp, pressing a bandage against his arm. The wound from the earlier fight burned, but it wasn't deep. Across from him, Lysera moved quietly, checking the door locks again and again. Her silver hair caught the faint light, giving her a ghostly look in the shadows. Neither had spoken much since they escaped the colony. Outside, lightning flashed over the cliffs, painting the rocks in white and blue. The air smelled of metal and rain. Finally, Eli broke the silence. "We can't stay here forever. They'll find this place." Lysera turned to face him. "They already know we're alive. The moment we leave, the Council's trackers will pick us up." He frowned. "Then what do you suggest? Sit here until they blast the whole canyon?" She walked closer and placed the cube on the table between them. It pulsed softly, its blue glow reflecting in her eyes. "This isn't about surviving anymore," she said. "It's about finishing what Kor started." Eli looked at the cube, frustration and curiosity fighting inside him. "You keep saying that. But what exactly did he start?" Lysera hesitated. "You wouldn't believe me. Try me," he said. She sat down slowly and took a deep breath. "The Council discovered a new kind of Kor energy, stronger than anything we've seen. Kor realized they were using it to build weapons, not to power the colony. He stole the data and planned to expose them. But before he could, his ship exploded. The cube holds everything, proof of their crimes and the coordinates to the hidden vault where the original cores are stored." Eli stared at her in disbelief. "That's why they're hunting us," she nodded. "If we find that vault first, we can show the galaxy what they've done. But if they find it, they'll erase the evidence and anyone connected to it." He leaned back, rubbing his temples. "And you think the two of us can outsmart an entire council?" Lysera's lips curved into a faint smile. "I think two people with nothing left to lose can do more than 100 who fear to try." Eli couldn't argue with that. He had seen that same determination in soldiers who'd fought impossible wars. Then we'll need supplies, weapons, transport. Everything. There's a trading post near the canyon's edge, she said. Smugglers use it. We can get what we need if we're careful. By morning, the storm had passed. They left the outpost before sunrise, moving across the barren landscape. The sky was still dark, and the ground glowed faintly with the energy veins running beneath it. Lysira walked ahead, her cloak fluttering in the wind, while Eli followed with his blaster ready. When they reached the trading post, it looked deserted at first. A few broken ships sat in the sand, and a rusted sign swayed above the entrance. Inside, they found a small group of traders drinking around a fire. One of them, a tall alien with golden eyes, looked up sharply. "Lizaratel," he said slowly. "Didn't think I'd ever see you again." Lizara's hand moved slightly toward her belt, but the alien raised a hand. "Relax, I owe your husband a favor." He looked at Eli. "And you must be the human who married into all this trouble." Eli stayed silent, watching every move. The trader chuckled. "I heard about the bounty. Whole system's looking for you two." Lysira stepped forward. "We need a ship and fuel. Something unregistered." The alien tilted his head. "That'll cost more than a favor." "We can pay," she said. "With information." That made the alien pause. He leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "What kind of information?" "The kind that can destroy the council," Eli said evenly. The trader studied them for a long moment, then nodded. "I'll see what I can do." While the alien made arrangements, Lysira moved closer to Eli. "He's risky, but he won't betray us. Kor saved his son once." Eli nodded, though he didn't fully trust anyone anymore. Every shadow felt like a threat. Hours later, the trader returned with a small hovercraft, old but functional. "It'll get you across the desert. After that, you're on your own." As they loaded the supplies, Lysira looked back toward the distant colony. The lights of the council towers shimmered faintly on the horizon. "Kor loved this world," she whispered. "He said it could be beautiful if people stopped fighting over it." Eli followed her gaze. "Then we'll make sure his death means something." They set off as the sun began to rise, its light turning the sand to gold. For the first time in days, Eli felt something close to hope. But that feeling didn't last long. By midday, a loud humming filled the air. Eli looked up and saw small dots appearing in the sky, drones moving fast. "They found us!" he shouted. Lysira gripped the controls, pushing the hovercraft to full speed. The engines screamed as they raced across the rough ground. Laser fire streaked past them, exploding rocks and dust. Eli fired back, hitting one of the drones, but more kept coming. The chase continued until the hovercraft reached the edge of a massive canyon. Below them stretched a glowing valley filled with old mining shafts and broken bridges. Lysira didn't slow down. "Hold on!" she yelled. Eli barely had time to brace before the craft plunged off the ledge, engines roaring. For a moment it felt like they were falling forever. Then the repulsors caught and they glided into the canyon, hidden beneath its deep shadows. When they finally stopped, both were breathless. Lysira turned to him, eyes wide but shining with determination. "We made it," she whispered. Eli looked around the canyon. In the distance he could see faint lights, structures buried in the rock. "That must be it," he said softly. "The vault." Lysira nodded, clutching the cube close to her chest. "Kor's secret." His real legacy, Lysira nodded. He built this place with the miners who trusted him. Only he and I knew the code. She placed the cube into a slot beside the gate. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ground rumbled and the doors slowly slid open with a deep, heavy sound. Beyond them stretched a long corridor filled with soft blue light. The air smelled clean, untouched by time. They stepped inside. The walls glowed faintly with energy, casting moving shadows across their faces. As they walked deeper, the corridor opened into a vast chamber. The sight made Eli stop in awe. Rows upon rows of glowing cores floated in transparent containers, humming gently. The light reflected in Lysira's eyes like tiny stars. At the center of the chamber stood a console connected to a central crystal, bigger than any power source Eli had ever seen. "Kor wasn't just hiding money," Eli whispered. "He was hiding power." Lysira nodded. "Each of these cores can power a city. The council wanted to use them to control the colonies. Kor wanted to free them." Eli walked closer to the console, scanning the glowing screens. He saw files, names, transaction records, and messages. "This is everything," he said. "Proof that the council lied, proof they killed him." Lysera stepped beside him. "If we send this to the Alliance, they'll expose the truth. But once we do, the council will come here. They'll destroy this place and us with it." Eli turned toward her. "Then we send it fast." She placed her hands on the console. "It needs both of us," she said. "The vault was built for 2 keys, one of his blood, one of his bond. You're the bond now." Eli hesitated for a moment, then placed his hand on the panel. The screen glowed brighter and a voice echoed softly in the chamber. "Vault access confirmed. Begin data transfer." The room came alive with movement. Holograms appeared, showing files and transmissions being sent through hidden satellites far above the planet. But the moment the signal reached orbit, alarms began to flash red. Lysera's face turned pale. "They found us!" Eli grabbed his weapon, running toward the entrance. Outside, the sound of engines filled the air. Dozens of council ships were descending into the canyon, their lights cutting through the dust. "They must have traced the transmission," Eli said grimly. Lysera looked at the console. "We need to finish the upload. If we stop now, all this will be lost." "Then we hold them off," Eli said firmly. He took position near the entrance as the first explosion shook the ground. The ships landed on the cliffs and armed soldiers poured out. Blaster fire lit up the canyon. Eli returned fire, his shots echoing off the stone. The vault's heavy doors tried to close, but the soldiers forced them open with energy cutters. Lysera kept working, her fingers flying across the controls. Sparks burst from the console as she redirected the signal to another satellite. "Almost done," she shouted. Eli ducked behind a rock as an energy blast hit the wall beside him. "You said that 5 minutes ago." "Then shoot faster," she replied. He almost smiled despite the chaos. Another explosion rocked the ground and dust rained from the ceiling. Then suddenly a deep rumble filled the chamber. Lysera looked up in alarm. "They're trying to collapse the canyon." Eli ran back to her. "How much longer?" "1 minute," she said. "Just one more." He turned toward the entrance again. The soldiers were close now, too close. He fired until his blaster overheated, then threw it aside and pulled Lysera behind the console. The final transmission finished with a loud tone. "Data upload complete." Lysera looked at him, her eyes wide. "It's done." The ceiling cracked above them, sending rocks crashing to the floor. Eli grabbed her hand. "We have to go." They ran down a side passage as the chamber began to collapse. Behind them, the crystal shattered in a burst of light, and the entire vault shook violently. They barely made it out through a narrow exit before the main gate caved in. Outside, the air was thick with smoke and dust. Half the canyon had collapsed, burying the vault beneath tons of rock. The council ships were retreating, their systems scrambled by the explosion. Eli and Lysera hid behind a ridge, watching the destruction. Lysera held the cube tightly against her chest. "The data's gone from here," she said, her voice trembling. "But it's out there now. The Alliance will see everything." Eli looked at her, breathing hard. "Then your husband's fight is over." "You finished it." She shook her head softly. "No, we finished it." For a long time, they sat in silence, watching the smoke fade into the sky. The planet's twin suns began to rise, casting golden light over the shattered canyon. The war they had feared might still come, but the truth was no longer hidden. Eli turned to Lysera. "What now?" She looked toward the horizon. "Now we rebuild, not as fugitives, but as free people." He smiled faintly. "Sounds like something Kor would have said." Lysera's eyes softened. "He believed in humanity more than most humans do." Eli stood and offered her his hand. "Then let's prove him right." Lysera nodded. "They'll have to. The evidence was too strong to hide. Once the council's corruption is known, others will rise against them." He smiled faintly. "You sound like Kor," her eyes softened. "I've carried his words for a long time. Maybe now I can finally let them rest." They began walking toward the desert plains, leaving behind the broken machines and scorched stones. Their hovercraft had survived the blast, though it was dented and missing one stabilizer. Eli managed to get it working again, and they rode through the endless sand in silence. Above them, the sky was clear for the first time in weeks. Hours later, they reached the edge of the mining colony. It looked different now, quieter, as if the people inside were waiting for news. The guards at the gates didn't stop them this time. Everyone had heard about the explosions in the canyon. Rumors spread faster than the desert wind. Some said the council had been attacked. Others whispered that Cortel's secret had been revealed. When Eli and Lysera entered the main square, dozens of miners turned to stare. Old workers, merchants, even children, all paused what they were doing. One of them, a gray-skinned elder, stepped forward. "You came back," he said softly. "We thought the council killed you." Eli looked around at the faces watching him. "They tried," he said, "but the truth survived." Lysera raised her head proudly. "Kor's sacrifice was not for nothing. The Alliance has the files. Soon the council's control will end." A ripple of whispers moved through the crowd. The miners exchanged glances, some hopeful, some frightened. The elder bowed his head. "Then perhaps the storms will finally end." Later, in the quiet of the old house that once belonged to Kor, Eli sat by the fire. The familiar hum of the power lines outside returned as the colony's systems flickered back to life. Lysera moved quietly, placing a pot of tea on the table. The warmth of the small home felt different now, not like a prison but like shelter. "I used to hate this place," Eli said softly. "Everything about it reminded me of loss. But now," he looked around at the worn furniture, the soft light, the quiet hum. "It almost feels like home." Lysera smiled faintly. "Kor wanted it to be a place of peace. Maybe you can finally give it that." He looked at her for a long moment. "What about you? Will you stay here?" She didn't answer right away. Her eyes drifted toward the window, where the suns were setting over the mines. "I think I will. This world still needs rebuilding. The people need someone to guide them. And I need time to remember who I am without fear." Eli nodded. "You'll do fine. You've already done more than anyone expected." She looked back at him. "And you? You could go home now. The Alliance will honor you for this." Eli thought for a moment before shaking his head. "Earth feels far away. Out there, I'd just be another soldier. Here, maybe I can do something that matters." Lysera's expression softened. "Then maybe we both stay." A comfortable silence filled the room. Outside, the night breeze carried the scent of rain. The first storm of the season was coming, but this one felt different. Gentle, cleansing, not filled with anger or war. Eli stood and walked toward the door. "You know," he said quietly, "Kor once told me that strength isn't just in battle, it's in rebuilding what's broken." Lysera joined him at the doorway. "Then we'll rebuild," she said. Together, days turned into weeks. The Alliance sent word that the council leaders had been removed from power. Investigations began across the colonies, and people spoke Cortel's name with respect and gratitude. On Zethra 9, the mines reopened, but under new rules: fair wages, safer conditions, and shared energy rights among workers. Eli became a local commander, helping organize the rebuilding efforts. Lysera worked beside him, guiding the new council of miners and merchants. Together, they turned Kor's dream into reality. The once dark colony began to glow with life again. Markets opened. Children laughed in the streets, and the air filled with the sound of hope. Sometimes, Eli caught Lysera standing by the edge of the canyon at sunset, her silver hair shining in the fading light. She never spoke of Kor during those moments, but he knew she still carried his memory with quiet pride. One evening, as the sun sank low, Eli joined her at the canyon's edge. "You ever wonder," he said softly, "what Kor would think if he could see this now?" Lysera smiled gently. "He'd probably say it was about time." Eli laughed, and the sound echoed across the empty cliffs. The world around them was still scarred, but it was healing. When night fell, stars appeared across the sky, brighter than before. Eli looked up and felt a strange peace settle over him. The war, the lies, the fear, it all felt distant now. He wasn't just a soldier anymore, and Lysera wasn't just a widow. They were survivors who had turned loss into change. As the wind whispered through the canyon, Eli turned to her. "Guess your brother's fortune wasn't gold after all." She looked at him, her eyes warm in the starlight. "No," she said softly. "It was faith. Faith in people like you." He smiled, and together they stood beneath the wide alien sky, the stars shining like promises waiting to be kept. The fight was over, but their story was only beginning. A story of two souls who found strength in the ashes and rebuilt a world from hope.